Brilliant. It's Carl here from Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial.com for short. And it's time for another trip to our desert island where our guest or guests will be dropped off to spend the remainder of their years in peace, quiet, and isolation. However, as always, to help stave off boredom, we have enough room on the boat for a few items. 3 video games or books, depending upon taste, 3 horror movies, 3 records, and 1 extra item that's decided at the end that we don't tell you about in advance. It's completely up to you at that point. But of course, my guest today is Max Malmer, bass player, vocalist of Swedish doom metal band Cavern Deep. Max, it is an absolute pleasure to be speaking with you. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. How have you been coping the last 12 months, the COVID life we live in, and your lifestyle and the band? How have you been holding up over the last 12 months?
Well, I think it's been going pretty good. In Sweden, we have had a quite different situation compared to the rest of the world. I think we have been more open, probably doing pretty well with it. Probably just because there aren't too many people living in Sweden, so we're very socially distanced. Just as all the time. yeah. So it's been doing all right. We've been we started up this band during the pandemic. So you could say almost that this the band Cavern Deep is a child of the lockdown. So we have met sometimes and rehearsed, and we have recorded our upcoming debut album, which is releasing through Interstellar Smoke Records, probably in the end of May. But we're not completely sure yet because vinyl printing plants right now are,
of course,
locked down sometimes. So we'll see. But overall, been doing quite fine. I miss live shows a lot, of course, but
What about in your personal life? Do you work? Are you still working during it? Was that sort of thing still going on for you?
So I do a couple of things. First of all, I'm a music producer, and I run a studio here in Umeå, in northern Sweden, So I have had some jobs there, especially in the start of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But towards the end now, it's like everyone rushed to the gate to try and record as soon as you couldn't play live, of course. But then when things had been shut down for a while and bands are running out of money because they haven't been doing gigs, there has been less work. So that's been doing okay. But other than that, I'm studying to become a civil engineer at the university here. And I'm also working as a tutor with computer science and AI as my field. And I've been doing that a lot, and that's been mostly like this over Zoom, of course. But computer science is fairly straightforward to do on a distance, fortunately, as you can have servers and the internet to communicate your code and solutions and ideas. So that's been okay.
Wow.
But,
that's an incredible many different elements to your person. Clearly it's going to be very busy and very occupied then.
Yes, all the time.
That's not a bad thing though, right? Because I'll imagine the idea of basically, even though Sweden was a little bit different, the stay-at-home orders and isolations and no gigs and stuff like that, that helped maybe keep you focused and a positive mind, you think?
Yeah, probably. It's all, I always find it good to have something to do. It dissipates the darkness of everyday life. to just like feel like there's a purpose to what you're doing, you know. It's like when you it's like the reason why you play World of Warcraft. For instance, I play World of Warcraft also, and it doesn't feel like I'm wasting time because you're have the feeling of achieving something. I think that's very applicable to everyday life as well. If you go about your day and feel that you're doing something, you will be more contented, or I will be. It's very personal, I guess, but yeah.
No, of course.
Yeah,
it is applicable, as you say, to most people in some way or another.
Whatever
that might be.
More or less, I think. Yeah.
We'll get into Cavern Deep in a little while, but let's get started then with your first set of nominations. Are you going to focus on video games, books, or a combination of both?
So I have 3 books and games / games, 3 horror films, and 3 records. So and I've tried to take in the ideas of the whole band here to try and. So it's like a compilation of all our favorites, basically.
Oh, brilliant. That's amazing. All right, well, let's get started then with your games.
Yeah. Yes. So the first book then is The Silmarillion by Jrr Tolkien, of course.
Okay. I have to ask, why that one specifically? I mean, when people think of Tolkien's work, obviously they think of one thing specifically, more famous. But why the similar? I can't even say it. That book in particular,
the Silmarillion.
Yes.
Well, it's just, first of all, it's a very impressive use of the English language. It's the whole book is like reading poetry. It's really beautiful, and if you are a fan of the more fantastical part about Tolkien's. If you've read the books, like the Lord of the Rings books, there's a lot of mentions of Numenor and these the lore behind everything, rather than just a story. So the Silmarillion, for those who really appreciated the lore, the Silmarillion is like the world's creation, the whole story of the world, where Tolkien binds everything together. It's an incredible work. He has basically created a whole religion, several languages, and just a total description of the entire world. He's created an entire world in its fantasy, and the Silmarillion, through storytelling of some elves called the Noldor. He tells the story of the entire world and its creation. So it's a very beautiful book, and it's a pleasure reading it. It's a bit hard to read at sometimes. So I recommend listening to it on audiobook.
Right, yeah, okay.
It's much easier. Yeah.
Amazing. All right, what's your second choice then?
The second choice is a game, and it's Super Metroid.
Oh wow, really going back?
Yeah, for sure. Overall in the band, we are big fans of games in the 90s, like Final Fantasy 6 and 7, and the whole 16-bit era, like Chrono Trigger and such. So Super Metroid is just brilliant game. It's just very good, I think, and the whole band thinks as well. Very challenging, but also some interesting storytelling in a minimalistic form. That's the platform gaming, It just feels like it's, all of the good platformers that comes out now, Undertale and all these, it all feels like Super Metroid is a very important piece of that puzzle.
You're not wrong. You often will hear a description for a platformer these days, and they will describe it as Metroid-like or Metroid-like and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's not be understated.
Yeah. So that's a big one. We all play that game. I love it. And the third is also a book, and that's The Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy.
Wonderful.
by Douglas Adams.
What about that specifically appeals?
It's just such a feel-good book with so many good quotes and so many. Yeah, it's just a fun book to read, and you just smile all the way through it, which I think makes, and we think makes, a great book. For instance, a quote that I really appreciate is, "Flying, it's just falling and missing the ground."
Amazing, yes. As soon as you said it, it brought a smile to my face. It's a book I know very, very well, and the feel-good aspect you say is true. I have to ask though, then, when it came to the film adaptation of that story, how did you feel about that?
Well, it's not as good as the book. It's just, that's just true. Unfortunately, it is a good, especially people who haven't read the book, for instance. I think they will find it to be a good film, of course, but it's just not as good as the books. I really like the BBC made a theatrical adaptation on radio, which I think is really good. That is the best adaptation of the book, I think.
Oh, that's amazing. It's really, it's a sort of, it's a tenuous link, but obviously Martin Freeman starred in Hitchhiker's Guide or the movie, and then of course Martin Freeman would go on to play Bilbo Baggins in the Hobbit films.
Yeah, he did a very good Arthur, I think. So I think the problem with the movie, just there's so much to fit in a movie. It's just so much stuff happening all the time in the book, and so many jokes going on all the time. It's just hard to fit everything in a movie. Yeah,
something will eventually fall by the wayside, so you're always gonna lose some sort of fan base there. I completely get where you're coming from.
Yeah. It's hard sometimes.
So Max, take us back to the very beginning then. Obviously, when you mentioned Cavern Deep, quite a new band. What is the story? What is the story behind the creation of the band?
So, me, Kenny, and Dennis, which the band consists of, have known each other for quite a while now. I think it's about 7 years. We've been playing music seriously for a long time. I play in a band called Sonaria as well, which you might be familiar with. And they play in a band, a Swedish band called Jrr Tolkien, which plays a form of Swedish prog rock, which is kind of cool. The Swedish prog scene, where you sing in Swedish, is actually very different from the rest of the progressive rock scene. So, for instance, it's much more blues oriented than the rest of the music scene. So, but we've all had a big love for doom metal. I've been growing up listening a lot to Candlemass, especially like the epic metal kind of thing. And I think Kenny has a lot of the 90s doom kind of thing going on, and he likes the fussy, Electric Wizard. I also love Electric Wizard, of course, but so we all had that love for doom metal, and we picked up on that. We enjoyed the same kind of thematics. So I think it was 3 years ago where Kenny just called me up and said, "Hey, we gotta start a doom metal band," and I was like, "Okay, sure."
Why not?
Why not? And it took a while, but eventually, after recording, I helped them record the last Jrr Tolkien record in my studio. We got around to starting to get this the ball rolling with Cavern Deep. So we wrote together this first concept album then, which is it's about 50 men who in the 1920s find a portal in the Himalayan mountains, let's say, into the mountain, where they find the remnants of a lost civilization, and the record tells the story of the descent into both madness and the cave. So it's a bit Lovecraftian kind of feel overall. So that's and musically, I think it's somewhere in between. There's a lot of like Melvins and Electric Wizard in there, but it's also some clear like Swedish metal influences, along with some of that Swedish prog rock influences as well. So it's a combination of all of those things, I think. We just call it doom metal, but it's I think it borders maybe on something else. I'm not sure, but people can call it whatever they want if they like it.
Well, inevitably, you have to pigeonhole your band in some genre just so you can get it out there. And sometimes, as you say, it's simple to do that, and then you listen and experience and learn more as you go along. I find it interesting to talk about the different influences in the band, referring to different eras of doom metal in particular. Is there a style more than any other that you, as a unit, all looked at and went, yeah, they're our biggest influence? So, for example, was it potentially like My Dying Bride, or was it Electric Wizard, or was it so on, and you just use that to combine it all together? Yeah,
the leading star, so to speak, is a band called Slowmatics, if you're familiar with them. Yeah. So that's the big one, I think. So we all very much enjoy most of their records, and we like their sound. So that's a very, very big inspiration. So that has been like the leading star, and then we have all of these other influences that kind of bind it all together, I guess.
Yeah, and obviously your other work, your other bands you've already described as being quite different and unique sounding as well. Does that mean all of you have quite varied individual tastes and what you like to listen to? Well, like yourself, for example, what do you enjoy when it comes to music?
Well, it depends. I right now I am listening, of course, we all listen to doom metal, but we have very different vantage points. Yes. I think I listen to a lot of the neo psychedelic rock and a lot of like ordinary metal as well. For instance, I love the new Elder record, and what's been running right now is the new Spelljammer record. Abysmal Trip is very good, I think. But I also listen a lot to like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I've been really enjoying them for quite a couple of years. Just been my go-to listening experience. And Kenny has a lot of more experience listening to jazz and a lot of blues as well. And he has his vantage point is more into like Electric Wizard, and he's the one who introduced me to Slowmatics, for instance. And Dennis, he also loves the music we're playing, of course, but he has a bigger background in power metal. Wow. Especially the band Helloween is his favorite band, I think. So it is quite weird, for sure.
Melting pots.
Yeah, for sure. So we all have different ways of approaching music in general. So I think that's definitely affecting our music when we play it.
Okay. And you sort of said it's a child of the pandemic times, as it were. But ultimately, now that you kind of got started, have you found that you're kind of just stuck in a position now where you can't really push on? Yes, you have the new album planned, the debut album planned, and potentially, hopefully coming out in the next couple of months. But without being able to go further at this stage, do you find it kind of stops you in your tracks, or is it kind of strengthening your resolve to keep pushing and pushing and pushing?
It's a little bit of both. Of course, it's a little bit discouraging when you're unsure about being able to play live. We hope to play maybe a couple of gigs at least this year.
Yeah.
But we have been focusing a lot on other forms. So we've been doing a lot with our YouTube channel. So we're releasing some animated lyric/music videos. It's some kind of combination of those two for all our songs on the debut album, which of course describes the lyrics, but also some synopsis to what's going on and some thoughts of the lead archaeologist as they descend into the cave. So you can follow the story of the concept album, which we have released 2 of them now. We have released 4 songs, and 2 of them have these videos, and we're gonna, after we have released the album, we're going to intermittently every month or 2 weeks, I'm not sure exactly yet, but we're going to intermittently release all of the videos. And we've also released or recorded, and it's basically completed, recording a live recording in my studio where we just play live direct into the console, and it's mixed, and then we have we rented some nice cameras and everything, so that is also releasing. And we are also releasing rehearsal diaries and studio diaries on the YouTube channel, so like everyone can follow our day-to-day life, so to speak. There's also we're gonna release like mixing breakdowns, how we think about the mix and how we record and what pedals we use and things like that.
Incredible. My goodness me. We see bands taking advantage of these times as much as humanly possible, but the level that you guys are going for, particularly so soon into the career of Cavern Deep, is truly staggering. You must be very pleased with what you're planning, working on.
Yeah, well, it's a lot to do, but it's all fun. So it's our hobby. So we love it, and our subscriber base have been growing steadily on the YouTube channel. It's not that big yet, but it has maybe 130 subscribers. So we have some people watching. So we try to grow it organically, and our thought with doing it like an investment like this right away is that it's going to be very fun for our fan base if the band grows a lot in 10 years. It's going to be very fun both for us but also for our fan base to be able to go back to check out the rehearsals behind the first album and everything like that. So I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. Right then, second nominations then. We are looking at horror. First question then, are you a horror movie fan? Do you watch them regularly?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so this should be easy for you.
Yes. So yeah, I love horror, and I've been watching it a lot on and off. I've been recently very much into creepypastas and podcasts. Like, I'm very into Knife Point horror, for instance. So I've been putting more time into that rather than maybe horror films recently.
There is some incredible creepypasta-wise. There are some incredible stories out there.
Yeah. And Swedish state media has a podcast which only broadcasts creepypastas called Creepypodden, run by a guy called Jack Werner. So that's on like state radio, which you can listen to in Sweden, where he translates both like well-known creepypastas like Stairs with Knife Point horror, but also local work which like local Swedish authors contribute to him, and he
great.
writes his own as well, and they're great. So yeah, all creds to them. So that I've been very into that lately, just because it's something new for me. So it's been fun. But yeah. So the first horror movie that we nominated is Alien, the first one.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I can't tell you how. I would say out of 9 out of every 10 of these Desert Island Dregs, Alien is a nomination. That speaks such volumes to its timeless classicness.
Yeah, it's just so good. The fact that they wait so long until they actually reveal the monster is just such a good thrill, that one. And it's as you said, it's timeless. Like a lot of horror films from especially like the 70s and 80s, and when you go back and watch them, not all of them hold up today.
Great.
Yeah. Unfortunately, but Alien does. It's just as good as when you watched it the first time.
Yeah, considering you're talking now, if you were to watch it this year, you'd be looking at a movie that's over 40 years old.
Yeah. It's incredible. Our second nomination is The Thing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that's just a classic. We all think. Yeah, it's just a good movie overall, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's iconic again for all the right reasons. And another one that you could watch today and it still look as good as it did then.
Yeah. So
I have to ask before you move on then about that. So, did you see the reimagining reboot of a film that came out, I think, in 2011 that also shared the title, The Thing?
Yeah, No, I didn't watch it because it got so bad reviews.
That's my reason to avoid.
Yeah. So I've avoided it, but I've heard it's bad.
All the best. I was just intrigued to sort of see what comparative you could have to it, but no worries.
Yeah. So I never got around to watching that one. Maybe I should just for science, you know.
Yeah, science.
Yes, exactly. So our third horror movie is Dawn of the Dead, the original. A big reason, just because it birthed my favorite genre in horror, which is zombie films and series. Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to pick your brains in a minute about that. So, Dawn of the Dead, the original, was that a period where you kind of followed along with each story? So obviously we had Night of the Living Dead, and we had Dawn, and then Day, and you just found Dawn was the best for you.
Yeah. I think it's the first one I watched. So.
Oh yeah.
I started with that one, so it was my introduction to that series. So it's probably just because of that, honestly.
Better introduction, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's just the first one, but they are all very. They're a bit different, aren't they? Not all of them are just as good, but yeah, I think Dawn of the Dead is the best.
Oh, I totally agree with you. And it's interesting you say that's got you interested in zombies, and that's your favorite genre.
Yeah.
So would you call yourself a kind of connoisseur and that you seek out a lot of zombie movies and watch a lot of that fiction?
Not really, but when I want to watch a horror movie, I'm always very glad to watch a zombie movie. It's just something about the apocalyptic part of it that I really enjoy. I very much enjoy the part in zombie movies when the world is collapsing, and how and why, and what's the virus like? Is it a virus? You know, that part of it. So I very much like the first season of The Walking Dead, for instance. Is excellent, I think. not too keen on some of the later seasons, but
It's a lot of them.
yeah. I honestly, I haven't even watched all of them. I always, if I try to watch them, I get to the point where Negan is introduced, and somewhere around there I lose it.
Yeah, that was exactly the point where I stopped watching as well. Funny enough, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Like, okay, yep, done.
Yeah.
What about is there any sort of modern zombie movie that jumps to mind immediately that you would look at and go, oh, I want people to check this out because it's not well known?
Oh, that's a good question. Not immediately. Unfortunately,
it's tough, isn't it? Because paranormal horror has kind of dominated the landscape for so long.
Yeah. It's honestly not. There's honestly not been so many good zombie movies lately. It's unfortunately my take on it. There is some good series, right? You have both The Walking Dead and you have the. I don't know if it actually was a spin-off or if it's a legit spin-off or if it's just a wannabe spin-off. But you have the Fear of the Walking Dead.
Yeah, I think I know. I've not seen it, but I think you're right. I think it is a spin-off or a part spin-off or something like that.
Yeah. It's like the same universe, but it's it takes place in Los Angeles instead. So that one was really good, I think. It seems like the zombie genre overall fits very well into just the context of the series. For some reason, it just seems to be the case.
You might be right. Perhaps even better than movies these days, because, as you say, you think of the classics. You think back to the 80s, and you think, or the early 70s, and Dawn of the Dead, and even things like Return of the Living Dead and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think the part that a lot of zombie movies are missing today is the mystery of it all. I think a lot of it just right away you see a lot of zombies and everyone's running and it's panic and it's some of like 21 Days Later, for instance. It's just the intro, the start of it all is so good. It takes a while until he walks into that church and it's completely overrun with zombies. Is the monster revealed, and it takes a while, and there's just a lot of unknowns all the time, and I think that's part of what makes it good, right?
Yeah, and I think when you mentioned that film in particular, it caused the images in my head, and thinking about what you said about loving the apocalyptic side of things. For me, when I saw that movie back when it was released, I'd never seen London, places I knew, places I walked in such a way. That was terrifying. So I'd imagine, let's say they do a zombie film set where you are.
Yeah. So the first time I watched that movie, I actually lived in London for a summer, and I watched that movie, and I think it's a flyby in the movie of, or if it's in the other movie. Anyway, I was living in Wimbledon, and there's a flyby of Wimbledon in the movie, and I was like. So I totally relate to that feeling.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, so go back to the debut album then, right? So you gave us this concept that is very, very interesting and fascinating, and it got me thinking, are you guys attempting to world build here? Now, you talked, say, an inspiration of Lovecraft and all that, but what you're describing here sounds like more of a, dare I say, a concept for the band as a whole. Is that perhaps what you're trying to do?
Yeah. So the thought is that at least as a start, we will make some concept albums. We have already started writing on the next album, and we're gonna record it this summer. And that is also a concept album. So we're trying to build some kind of a universe, and the thought right now, at least, is that we're gonna follow this lead archaeologist, the one who leads this 50 men into this mysterious cavern, and follow him through what happens to him. So it's gonna be revolving around that in some way, at least to start with. Maybe after 4 albums we get tired of it, do something else. We'll see, but that's the plan right now, at least.
That's so interesting. It really, really is. And it's interesting as well when you talk about what you've released so far and the reaction to the music that's gone out. It's been pretty positive. Is that something you've been paying attention to?
Yeah, somewhat. I listened to a podcast called, I guess it's called Blind Submissions, but it's spelled Blind Submissions or something. I don't know. The first time I saw the name of the podcast, I thought, oh, nice, a Polish podcast, but no.
Nope.
Just being silly. They're from the California, actually. So that's a podcast I've been following, and they actually listened to Cavern Deep and our latest single Waterways yesterday and gave it a lot of praise. So that was I've been following it a little bit, but it's it hit me quite a lot when people I look up to were speaking very well of the music and liked it. So their concept is that they small talk, they have guests, which is like important people from the underground music scene, and so it was the lead singer of Brrraaains, Susie, last episode. So, and they speak about music and such, and then they have submissions. They take submissions, so they play, I guess they get a lot of submissions, but they play maybe 5 of them, and then they discuss the music. And I think our song is the only one that they actually wanted to listen to the whole song from to the end. So that must be something.
Oh, absolutely. And the reach alone, I mean, even if they hated it, let's say they'd hated it,
yeah,
you were getting played on a podcast in California, from California. That's the kind of reach you can only dream of these days, it seems.
Yeah. Well, it is hard to reach out through, you know, I usually compare the music scene to, well, if we just put it in the market perspective, in a town of maybe 100,000 people, you can have one McDonald's, and the market will be saturated. The music scene is the equivalent of a town of 100,000 people having 100 McDonald's, I think. So yeah, I completely agree. It's very hard to get recognized in the noise of, and I don't think it's a bad thing that people create a lot of. Oh, but the sun is a thing. There we go. I don't think it's a bad thing that people create a lot of music. I think it's a good thing, but it also creates a lot of music, and it's hard to stand out. Yeah, as well. The Swedish scene is obviously very self-confined, barring one particular element which is always broken out, which of course is synonymous with Sweden, death metal. Yeah. Even though that's not what you guys are doing specifically, focused more on the doom side of things, do you find that's added pressure to you to live up to the whole, oh, you're from Sweden, so you must play heavy music? Yeah. So yeah, sure. And we want to play heavy songs as well. It's we do have a lot of like non-metal influences, of course, but overall it is one of our goals to just play very powerful and heavy music. And it's of course where I come from as well. Sonaria is a death metal band, for instance. So I've been playing death metal and touring with death metal bands my entire life. So yeah, I love it. Yeah, that's the thing. It's not even a slur or a knock upon that, where it's kind of like, oh, death metal only comes from Sweden. It's like, yeah, but all the great death metal comes from Sweden. It's just like when you described your bandmates, other band, and described it as being progressive rock
and Sweden are not things that go together in my head, and it's fascinating to want to experience that side of things almost.
Yeah. I think a lot of the thing with the progressive scene in Sweden is that they have been singing in Swedish, so it doesn't. It is a big thing inside of Sweden. You have bands like Brrraaains and Gudaskymning, and you have I guess Skräcködlan, which is the dinosaur. Funny thing, Skräcködla in Swedish directly translated is a lizard of terror.
Brilliant.
But, so you have a lot of those bands, but they all sing in Swedish. I could email you a link with one of those bands. I if you enjoy metal in general, you'll probably enjoy them.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into your tastes then with your third nominations. We have talked about music you like, so it'll be interesting to see what records you guys have chosen.
Yeah, so we had a lot of ideas for records, so I've been trying to seething out here, trying to take one record from each band member.
Yes.
Kenny chose Jrr Tolkien Live Bursting Out, which I also think is a great album. The stage performance of Jrr Tolkien back in especially the 70s is beyond.
Incredible showmanship, incredible.
Yeah. It's a very good show, and it's a great band. Overall. And then I guess my pick is Embers with Elder. So if you haven't heard Elder, it's I guess they kind of was a doom metal band to start with, but I guess it's kind of like neo psychedelic rock / metal nowadays. And their last album, Embers, is fantastic. It's like really good. Have you heard it?
Yes, absolutely. It was what it's the album that got me into Elder to then go looking for the wider catalog.
Oh yeah. They have a lot of good things, but especially that album is basically, I think almost all of the songs are just incredible, and it's been like the main thing I've been listening to the last year. So
amazing.
Yeah. So from Dennis, I have to check. I think let's see here. He chose Symphony of the Night with Halloween, of course. So that's not an album that I am myself very into, but overall I think Halloween is great. I think it's probably my favorite power metal band, so to speak. It's probably because I enjoy like thrash metal and such, for instance, and I think they're kind of more like thrash metal-y as far as power metal goes, I guess.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, there's a bit of a scale on power metal, and when you can't compare Halloween to say Blind Guardian or to Sabaton. There's quite a gulf between all of them, I would think.
Yeah. It's a quite a genre that's quite hard to define, honestly, right? It's you have everything from Dragon Force, which is definitely power metal, but then you have Halloween, and it's still kind of power metal, and and everything that.
Especially for us in the UK, we've never really embraced power metal in quite the same way as the European continent has.
Yeah, and then not in the US as well, I think, right? So it's very European. I usually get like if I play a power metal record when I'm in the UK, I just get, well, this is just a fast rainbow. What is the special with this?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
It's a bit lazy, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So that's our pick for records. Yeah.
That is, I do love the fact that, as you say, that is a lot of your influences coming through there as well. But asking one, it's near impossible. I'm sure if I asked you again tomorrow, you'd have a different one, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So just one of them.
Yeah.
Just if I had to choose one of them. Ooh. Yeah, then probably, it's me sitting here right now, I probably take Embers with Elder.
Yeah, absolutely. Stick to what you enjoy.
Yeah. It's I just think it's a fantastic record all the way through, and I think it's very impressive also how brave the vocalist is on that record, because he has been a long time, not per se hiding behind a lot of effects and such, but maybe more, let's see here. That's a bit overexposed. There we go. Maybe not hiding behind a lot of effects, but definitely they've had more effects on the vocals, and the vocals on this album is very clean, and it must been very as a musician, I really appreciate it must be been very hard for both, of course, the band, but also for the lead singer himself to be able to go that bare sound. I think it's great. It's very his singing sounds very, very good, of course, but it's a very brave thing to do, I think, and they did have a more clean sound, a more refined, not necessarily better, I think, but a more classically produced record, and that takes a lot of bravery, and it also takes a lot of skill, I think, to be able to still carry over your sound from where you were to this new place of this new sound, and this so I'm very impressed by the fact that they did that so good, so well, so to speak.
You're almost studying it to a degree, both from a fan and from a musician standpoint.
Yeah, exactly.
So you talked about possibility or the hope that you might be able to do some live shows later on in this year, potentially. Is that the long-term plan? Is Cavern Deep going to be, you guys want to get out there regularly, play live, you want to tour, you want to do all that aspect of things?
Yeah, so we have been talking about touring. We will maybe not be, as we are focusing on doing a lot of, albums often, trying to produce maybe an album per year, and doing all of this YouTube material and such. So we might not, tour 100 gigs per year ever, but we will. We have been talking about doing a tour when it's possible. Yeah. So that will definitely happen, and I would guess that Western Europe would be the goal to start with, as our record label and such is situated here and has the main focus area here.
Of course.
But maybe trying to tour the US at some point as well. So we'll see what the future brings. But this year probably just gigs in Sweden, because that will be the easiest, of course. But
of course, it's sensible.
Yeah. But so we're gonna play our hometown, and we have a gig planned that's gonna be out and about in the forest. That's gonna be in August sometime here in northern Sweden. So we're probably gonna do that, and maybe play in Norrköping in September. I think.
Okay.
But, we'll see if everything goes according to plan, or
That's it. Just stay attached to your social media and your channels and stuff, and we'll find out what's going on there when it does happen. When shows do reopen, when shows do reopen and whenever they are, how confident are you that crowds will come back? Or do you think it might be a bit slow as people are nervous or apprehensive about the experience?
Well, I think you can already kind of tell that there's a quite a schism among people. There's a lot of people that really just want to go out and, get the vaccine and then just roll out and start going to shows and, living life as normal.
Yeah.
But then there are people who are more wary, who are not so sure, and there's still a lot of fear going around. I think people are afraid, and I understand it, but I think, when there starts to be shows and, a lot of people see that there's a lot of people going to shows and that they're having a good time, I think a lot of people will take part of it, of course. But you will, at least in the start, see restrictions on crowds, perhaps, and a lot of masks in the audience, maybe, So it's gonna be a bit different, but I think there's a lot of people that want to go to shows, especially the people that did go to a lot of shows before pandemic, I think.
I'm one of them.
yeah, same here. So I think it's a little bit different, but I think it's gonna be okay.
I agree. It's just about getting there. Everything's just getting there.
Yeah.
Talking of getting there, what is something you guys in Cavern Deep would like to achieve over the next 12 months? Something realistic a goal, effectively.
Yeah, so I think the goal is to be active on our YouTube channel, keep releasing stuff there, release our album. It's gonna be out digitally or everywhere, of course, but it's also releasing on colored vinyl and CD. Maybe even to release it on cassette. And then, sorry?
For you collectors.
Yeah, exactly. And then maybe play a couple of shows and record another album. So that's the plan, I think.
That there alone is a very busy 12 months. A very busy 12 months.
Yeah, for sure.
Fingers crossed it all goes exactly as you want it to. Before you go, Max, there is one more nomination. It's the one I say we don't tell you about beforehand. And it is simply this. One thing that you want to take to the island that you feel you cannot live without. Effectively, a luxury item, something you can't live without. The only rule is it can't be a person and it can't be a pet.
Okay. So that depends. Do the island has power, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So I'd bring my computer. Even though I might not have internet, I could do fine with sitting and playing City Skylines, I suppose.
You can do a hell of a lot with it. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Max, thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun. I really enjoyed the format of the interview. It's fun.
Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Tumblr. Go to Patreon to help us out over there. That's patreon.com/gbhbl, as well as Big Cartel, where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favour, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?